The Jaguars have been moving through the offseason kind of quietly so far. We've got 1010XL's Frank Frangie here. Frank, you know, I think the most noise the Jaguars have made this offseason was the sound of Trevor Lawrence's first pitch when the ball hit the catcher's mitt. Did you see the pitch? What'd you think about it? You're a baseball guy. Did you like the form? It was a little high, but...
He looked pretty good, didn't he?
Yeah.
Kind of a rock and throw guy. I thought he had a good arm action on it. I thought, listen, he probably could have been a pitcher. He's 6'6", he's 240. And it was funny what he said. What he didn't want to do is do the 50-cent thing where he threw it to the dugout. He wanted to make sure he didn't do that. So I thought it was a darn fine pitch by Trevor.
As a guy who throws things for a living, that definitely would have been disappointing if it just went sailing to the left. So it was definitely a good pitch to see. A lot more action there than we've had from the Jaguars, Frank. It's been a very quiet offseason. I think this was kind of the expectation, but it's still definitely an adjustment period for everyone that's been following this team because we're so used to the Jaguars going around and just throwing money left and right at their problems. But this year, not a lot of cap space to do that, and they've been bringing in a lot of quiet players where even some of us that follow the team are like, who?
Yeah, well, but I'll tell you this. Remember, they were good last year. Yeah. And that's a lot of young players who are going to get better. So I don't think they had a lot of needs. I think they really tried to keep Juwan Taylor, weren't able to do it. I think they wanted Arden Key. I don't know if they were as committed to that as they were Juwan Taylor. They really wanted to keep him. They found a way to keep Evan Ingram. I think Dearness Johnson's going to help the team. I think the fact that Josh Wells is back as a swing tackle, they did some quiet things. But I think the big story is not what they didn't do. There's not a lot they had to do. If you look at, Jamal, you and I right now could name the 22 starters, anybody else could too, and there's not a big hole. There's hole in some depth areas. You want to get deeper. You need some guys that are backups, like pass rushers for sure. That seems to be the area. But I don't think there was a lot of needs, as some people suggested.
Yeah, there are a few spots that we're doing a little bit of projecting. Yeah. Like we really need a guy like Trayvon Walker to take a big step forward to help the defense in that pass rush area. You need a guy like Devin Lloyd to take another step forward to help the defense to continue to be a little bit more solid in that linebacker spot. But as far as needs, no, there's no huge needs. You could use a nickel corner. You could definitely use a pass rusher, maybe some offensive line depth. But it's not like years past where you looked at it and you were like, here's a need, there's a need. Here's a need, there's a need. And you're just, anywhere you looked on the roster, you knew there was something that needed to be fixed.
Well, the interesting thing about that, Jamal, at least for me, is I do think they need an edge. I think the one thing they've got to improve is the exterior pass rush. Everybody knows that's what was not nearly as good as it needed to be. What's surprising to me is all the guys that are still out there that you know their names. Leonard Floyd is out there. Clowney's out there. Melvin Ingram's out there. Frank Clark's out there. We could go Bud Dupree's out there. There's so many guys. It's almost like nobody took a chance on those guys. Now, here's the good thing. The longer they're out there, the price comes down. I think you're going to see all those guys sign with somebody eventually. I'll bet you the Jags land one of those pass rushers that you've heard their name. That's the one area where I would like to see them bring in a free agent before we get to the draft. I really would.
Hey, everybody was asking for a reunion. Yannick Ngakoue is a free agent. Yeah. I don't know if a reunion's in the cards for him in Jacksonville, but that's a name that Jaguars fans definitely know.
And that's the kind of position. Yeah, you know, you like what you know. You would have loved Calais Campbell, and I think they try. I think they probably made an offer to Calais. He got the big offer in Atlanta, which is why he didn't wind up here.
Very nice.
But yeah, Ngakoue's another name you know, but I really wouldn't be surprised if one of those edge guys winds up here.
Now, one of the big places that the Jaguars will get some help is in the NFL draft. We know that. They have that pick that late in the 20s, and I know there's a little bit of angst from Jags fans because the last time the team picked there, they didn't exactly land an impact guy. This year, we know there are a few places that they can improve, but as you kind of go through it and you look at it, you say, all right, well, you need a player that's going to be able to come in and contribute. Right. I know a lot of people are tabbing them to say that they're going to go and try and replace Juwan Taylor. That's what a lot of the draft experts have kind of said. But us here, I think a lot of us are saying, you know, Walker Little's kind of going to be the front runner for that job. Where do you think they can look at that pick?
I think they've built this team to a point to where it's value over need. Now, you always hear that argument. Everyone says value over need, but I don't believe people draft that way. I think people draft more for need than value more times than not. But I think the Jags are to the point now that it's value over need, meaning if the best player there is a right tackle, you take him. If the best player there is an interior defensive lineman, you take him. If the best player there is a corner, a nickel corner, you take him. I see the safety from Alabama mocked to them a lot. I think the Jags have gotten to a point, and that's a good thing, by the way, Jamal. I think the Jags have gotten to a point where they really can take the best available guy who may be at 3 or 4 different positions, not quarterback and not receiver, but some of the other spots. I think it's value over need. Everyone says that. I think it's really true for the Jags this year.
If Brian Branch is on the board when they're on the clock, they should just run the pick in. That would be a really good addition to that defense. All right, Frank, thanks for being here. That'll do it for sports.